Hello, this is Mark with Smith Fertilizer and Grain and SFG Top Performance. With me today we have Charles, Derek, and Jason. The topics we're going to cover today will be equipment and facility updates, current crop conditions, plot information on our plot day, late season heat stress on soybeans, soil testing in dry conditions, and getting prepared for cover crop seeding. Charles, would you like to start us off on equipment and facility updates?
Yes. This week we received a new John Deere, the new John Deere floater. It'll be a four-wheel floater. We just got that. We've been looking forward to that. It's a twin bin floater, so that'll really help out to take care of GPS spreading. It'll do other spreading also, but it's going to be a very good improvement. Now have that machine and a rogator, which will top dress. So those are two new additions in the dry fertilizer field that we didn't have a year ago. Other work that's been going on, we're finishing up our anhydrous plants. Been a lot of back order on some parts because of the COVID. Plants are getting topped off. They will be here in the next week. The docks rebuilt at Melcher. You got a landing strip over at Melcher compared to what it used to be. Same thing with Milo. They've got identical docks, the 4-station dock, so that'll be a pretty nice dock. Huge improvement. We're currently unloading salt into our salt shed. Some train cars come in. We're topping off that facility with salt coming off the rail. So that's keeping everybody busy, and we're getting a lot of the facilities ready to go for grain. It'll be here quicker than we know it. We're in the process of cleaning out bins and checking fans and checking where the mice have been in some of the wiring, making sure everything's working. Getting it cleaned up around the bins. We've been doing a lot of spraying of malathion of the bins to keep the bugs down. Can't protect them too much. Getting all the damaged grain out. So everybody's getting ready to go. It looks like it's going to be here quicker than we think.
Yep, it is. Well, that's good. Jason, would you be able to give us a current update on the crop conditions?
Yeah, right now it looks like we're going to need a lot of that storage in a lot of our crop area. You know, there's problems here and there, but for the most part, all in all, it looks really good. The corn, our crop plant health early really shows. If you put fungicide on, took care of it, put the right nutrients on, the corn looks really good. If there was any problems, it definitely showing up with yellow corn. The wet spots, you know, they look good for a while, but now that it's been dry for a few weeks, there aren't a lot of ears in the wet spots, so we are going to be a little bit short in the wet spots. In any place there was any plant health issues that, you know, fungicides are really showing right now that them fields are green. They'll still take in some moisture and still do some good. The good thing is at night we've had a lot of dews and heavy dews. Those tomatoes have been opening wide up, taking all this plant moisture in, so that's been helping keep our plants healthier and the corn looking good. There is going to be a little reduction in the beans. I'm sure you've heard me say August rain makes grain, and we didn't have that. So the top end is off the beans. I don't know whether that's 3 bushel, 2 bushel. I won't say the exact number, but we're definitely off a little bit. Derek, what are your thoughts on this late season soybean health?
So coming into August, I was really excited on these soybeans because they were potted up like crazy. We had really good weather, but then August kind of without any rain there. It was a 3.5 week stretch where there was nothing. I mean, we caught half an inch right at the beginning, but I really think we probably had a decent amount of pod abortion, you know, kind of the normal is around 20%, but with this heat stress, we definitely saw that top cluster of soybeans that they just aborted down to, you know, maybe one or two soybeans on top of that plant. So I think we lost some top end yield, like you said, there, and we shrunk down, but still we had really good growing conditions. The beans were tall, they were potted up. There's still a lot of pods on there. It's just that top end cluster just couldn't get enough water to them. So I think there'll be some smaller beans up there.
Okay. Yes. Derek, do you want to talk a bit about the upcoming plot day we're going to have?
Yes, so we are going to have a plot day up at the Attica plot on September 9th, and we're going to go over cropland, Mershman, and decal seed, and then we're going to go through the plot, kind of work it as a seed kickoff day. We also have our insight plot there that we're going to have industry reps from Winfield United talk about the products in there and go over any questions, any trials that we've had throughout the year. Besides our insight plot with the varieties and the products, we have many plots around out in the countryside that we have a really good look at what hybrids handle what areas and what products work out in the field instead of just the plot. A couple specific ones that I know we have a really good look at is these wind events that we've had this summer. I have a really good look at which hybrids are handling those better in no-till versus tillage areas. So the salesmen at SFG are going to know which hybrids to put on your farm in your certain scenario. Another really good product demo I have is a microsync trial that we put microsync on with urea top dress, and in the areas that we treated versus untreated, we increase the amount of zinc manganese boron in those areas based on the soil and the tissue test. So those tissue tests have almost doubled the amount of micronutrients in the plant. So we're showing that these products are working out in the field besides just in a 10 by 20 plot.
Okay, could you go back over the time and date again when this plot tour is going to be?
Yes, so September 9th at 6 p.m. Up at the Attica plot north of the main office. We're going to have a meal provided and talk about the products for about an hour while we eat dinner, and then have a plot walk for the last half hour, 45 minutes, or however long people want to walk. We're going to have Winfield United representatives and Cropland Merschman DeKalb there to talk about any seed needs for the next year and talk about new products that you can put on your farm.
Okay, thank you. Well, as you've been talking about, we've missed some rains and it's a little bit drier out. This time of year we start planning for our soil sampling. And that's something we have to be concerned about this time of year with the dryness. We look at the crop out there and we haven't been using as much fertility because the crop hasn't been getting enough moisture, so our yields might be down a little bit. So we're going to have possibly some leftover fertilizer in the field. That's good. But also we have concerns that we have less recycling of the fertilizers from the stalks and the leaves in the plants because it's so dry. It's not going to, we need the moisture, the rains to take it back out of the plants, put it back in the soil. So if you take a test and we haven't been recycling, you're going to have a lower test. It's not going to be good. Then also we have a concern that pool replenishment. We need the rainfalls to continue to replenish the nutrients that are in the field, and we're not getting those. So we have one positive and two negatives as far as how our soils are doing with nutrients today that we'd be testing. So we have to be very careful in taking a test. Our biggest concern in sampling right now is getting a good test, because that top inch of soil in some areas is powder, and when you try to pull a sample like that and you pull your core out, that top inch will disappear before you get it into your bag. So we have to be real careful with that. It can be done, but we would prefer to see enough moisture to make the cracks go away in the fields. You know, a quarter inch of rain won't do it. You need to have yourself a good inch and a half, and that rate can vary by the type of soil you have in the field, but it gets back to we have to have the soils with moisture in it to get a good sample.
Now, Mark, is it beneficial in these dry areas to maybe take a sample in the spring, or have you heard any talk about sampling fall versus spring, or what's your opinion on that?
Spring samples can be just as good as a fall sample, but what we like to do is maintain a pattern. If we normally sample in the fall, we want to do that from year to year. If we normally sample in the spring, then we maintain that, because there's little variances in it, and major concerns, no, but it's nice to stay in a certain cycle. And so if you are doing it in the fall, where it allows us to have more time, usually, to get the sample done, we like to do that and get the fertilizer on. But if a grower is concerned about the conditions, yeah, spring can be just as good. Jason, can you talk to us a little bit about getting prepared for cover crops?
Yes, cover crops, they're a lot like everything else. You know, we're going to need some moisture to get them to grow. A lot of the places where we need these cover crops are the side hills and areas that are a little bit drier. So we're going to need some rain to get them to grow, but there are several options. Actually, this weekend we seeded some oats and turnips in some ground that just came off of silage, and that works very well for a fall cover crop. It dies and you don't have to worry about killing it in the spring. So you don't have to worry about, spraying and anything else. It's done. So you're good to go in there, and you have the cover on your side hills. And planting this early, we hope we get some rains, or maybe incorporate it just a little bit to get some of that moisture brought up from underneath, and hopefully get them to grow and for that to take off. So that's one option. There's a lot of different options. We can also fly things with the airplane in standing corn, rye, triticale, wheat, oats, radishes, turnips, the brassicas. You know, you can use any of them, and they all work as good cover crops, and they all have their purpose. The radishes and turnips, they make a big hole in the ground. You know, they open up that plant and open up the soil, so they do very good at that. Your rye and your triticale, there's some people that are chopping that and letting it go a little bit farther and using that, and then planting soybeans later on. So it all depends on what you're going to do and what you put for your cover crop. And there is a place in these side hills that definitely need it. It needs some things to hold it in place over the winter, as we're seeing this spring with the early rains, that some of these washes and stuff we had, some of that would have been eliminated with some of these cover crops. And then when, the fall, if you're spreading fertilizer, it's a good time to put if you don't use the airplane, it's another good way to use it with the rye or the fall rye. It germinates late and, a little cooler temperatures. So, throwing it in with the fertilizer is another good way to get it seeded and established. As far as, fertilizer, a lot of that comes back to the soil, so you're not wasting, your fertilizer. You're utilizing it, and you're not, I've heard the theory, well, I don't want to put it on, it's taking my nutrients. Well, that isn't the case, because it's coming back and being, like Mark talked about in soil sampling, it's being rejuvenated, and we get the rains, and it's coming back to the soil. So you're not losing that in it. Like I've heard that argument in the last couple of days here. So there's a lot of options, and there's a lot of good options for cover crops that will. Some of them you don't have to kill in the spring. The rye, the winter wheat, the triticale, you're going to have to spray them in the spring if you don't want to harvest them. So you're going to have to spray them early so they don't get out of hand and get too large. So there's a lot of things to think about when you're going over that cover crop. I know I've talked about a lot of different things very quick. So if you have more questions, call one of us or whoever your agronomist is with Smith Fertilizer and Grain, and we'll sure help you get the right decision for you and the right cover crop for you in your area. So
Okay. Well, thank you, Jason. I want to thank everyone for joining us today on SFG Top Performance. We'll be back here again in 2 weeks. Thank you very much.